Okay, today we're starting on page 295 in the Tzurba Rabbanan series. We are in volume 17, the Lax Family Edition, the Paris Family volume. And last week we started what was the intro to the Malachot of Shabbat. And this week on page 295, we start the seventh and final shir in this sefer on Hilchot Bishul, part 1. Okay. Now, although the Mishnah lists the melachot and Bishul is not the first malacha on the list, however, in the Tzurba Rabbanan series, they start with Bishul because they say it's the most complex and most practical halachot of the halachot of Shabbat. Every week we're dealing with Bishul, putting on the warming tray, taking it off, all these different parts of Bishul. So they're saying it's the most relevant, at least to them. And therefore, they want to start with this melacha. The first issue that he brings over here is Masechet Shabbat, Daf Ayin Dalet. What's his question? If you remember back in the list that we had, so if you go back to the last year and source number 5 in the last year, which was on page 248. There, the Mishnah brought the list of malachot, and Hazareya, V'Acharish, V'Akotzer, V'Mamer, V'Hadash, V'Azora, V'Haborer, Hatochen, America, V'Alash, V'Ha'oifa, and it brings baking. So now the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat Ayin Dalet Amud Bet has a question from Rav Papa. Rav Papa says, Shavak Tanadi Dan Bishul Simanin, the Habab Mishkan, Venakat Ofa. He says, 1 second. The Melachot of Shabbat are based on what was done in the Mishkan to build the Mishkan. That's the way we're knowing. We're saying what was done in the Mishkan to build the Mishkan. So in order to build the Mishkan, we had to heat up herbs, vegetables, certain type of herbs, and from there you got the dye, the color, and then you stained the curtains to make the colors in the Mishkan. So it was Bishul. So how come on the list over here in the Gemara, in the Mishnah that brings down the list of the Melachot, instead of saying Bishul, it brings the Lashon of baking, of oifa, of baking, and not Bishul? That's the question. But if nakat oifa, he shavak the Bishul and nakat oifa. Why was that? So he says, you have to understand. The Gemara says you have to understand why the Mishnah put it in this order. Why the Mishnah said baking and not bishul. Tana didan sidura de patnakat. Remember, the Mishnayot is supposed to be by heart. It's supposed to be balpeh, right? It's the oral Torah, and therefore they made everything in mnemonics, in ways to remember stuff. So remember last week we said how did the Tana make this list of malachot? He made it in how you make things. The first thing was sidra de pat, all the stuff that are involved in how to make bread. Then was the stuff of how you make hides, right? And how you do other things. It was put in an order. So therefore, it was chosen baking in the list, but it really is bishul. Now, Rav Haigon wants to say, 1 second, in the Mishkan there was baking. You bake the bread. So why have to tell me that he left Bishul? So the way the answer is that it's the binyan of the Mishkan, not actually what was done in the Mishkan the rest of the time, but rather how the binyan of the Mishkan was, which was cooking in order to make the colors for the curtains. So right now what we see is from this Gemara is that baking and cooking are interchangeable, right? That's what we're seeing right now. He dropped this for that, but it's the same exact thing. So says the Rambam. Here's the Rambam in source number 2. Echad ha'oifa et hapat, one who bakes bread, or mevashel et ha'ma'achel, or et hasimumanin. If someone cooks food, or he even cooks non-food stuff, okay, or he makes water hot, hakol inyan echadhu. It's all the same malacha. It's all the av malacha of Bishul. So you have baking bread, cooking food, cooking other things, other materials that are not food, okay? or even heating up water. All of them is considered the Av, a malacha of Bishul. Now, what's the difference in Oifa and Bishul? Just for our understanding, baking is dry heat, right? Whereas cooking is that there is a roitev, there is a liquid involved, right? Wet heat. So you have a dry heat and wet. Now, the Rambam in Hilchot Shabbat continues, and he tells us in source number 3, what is the toldot of the malacha of Bishul. So he says, so if someone melts even a different type of metal, kol shehu, right? Even the slightest amount, right? Or one who heats up a piece of metal until it becomes like coal, that's performing the tolda of cooking, right? Because cooking, he said, is for food or for materials to make the dye, like vegetables and stuff like that. Metal, if you heat up metal, right, that is a tolda. Someone who melts wax, right? Tallow, tar, brown tar, pitch, all these things, they're all the tolda of the malacha of Bishul. So too, if someone bakes an earthenware pot, right? He makes china, right? So he's heating it up, he makes it hard. That's also the tolda. So this is the general principle. Bain sefa guf kasher ba'esh, right? If you are putting it in the fire and you make it soft, or you make something soft hard with the fire, that is the tolda. Okay, so because sometimes fire makes something hard, and sometimes fire makes something soft, depending where you're starting from, what your starting point is. So, Lema said, what's the difference between the tolda and the av? What did we say last week? This is the same. Is it the same? Is it different?
For Bishul?
For the halachic principle. Is it the oraita or the rabbanan if it's a tolda? It's the same. It's the same. Okay? So it makes no real difference if it's the tolda or not. What was the difference? Okay, so if you did both of them, are you chayiv only one carbon, right? If you did a tolda and the av, there's one opinion, it's only one carbon. According to the other opinion, whatever was done in the Mishkan, that's the av, and whatever its derivative, that's the tolda. But the din, as how a person, what he's chayiv on, what the carbon is, or what the punishment is, that's the same. They're both in Isser D'Oraita. They're both the tolda and the av. So here we have Yisod number 1 when it comes to Bishul. Bishul is either dry heat or wet heat. Okay, it's taking something from hard to soft, soft to hard, and that is all considered in the din of Bishul. Okay, so now we're going to go into Bishul for liquids. There's 2 different things. There's cooking a liquid, and then there is cooking a solid. And what we really have to define at this point is what is considered cooked.
Exactly.
Okay? What is considered cooked?
Yeah.
Okay, then once you get that definition, what the Gemara is going to tell us is Yad Soleded Bo. Right? Now, Yad Soleded Bo for liquid is Yad Soleded Bo. The definition of Yad Soleded Bo, that's the Bishul, is can be considered Yad Soleded Bo. What is Yad Soleded Bo, and how do we define it in today's temperatures?
Yad Soleded, you can cook in this kind of a separate. But I thought we are going to defend and to make the definition of what is cooked already.
That's going to be the thing. If you go from, you're going to go. This is the halacha. If you go from less, that's okay. Machal side. That's by solids. That's by Yavash. Okay. When it comes to lach, it's when you go from less than Yad Soleded Bo, and then you go to Yad Soleded Bo, you just did the Isser of Bishul. Okay, you just did the Malach of Bishul. We're going from something less than Yad Soleded Bo to Yad Soleded Bo. Okay, we'll go through everything. Let's start with the first source, and Masechet Shabbat Mem Bet, source number 4 here in Tzurba, on page 297, and it says as follows: Taner Rabbanon, maybe Adam Keton Mayim. Person can bring a ketone, a jug of Mayim, umenicho kineged hamedura. And he can put it close or place it opposite, right? Kineged, opposite the bonfire. Okay? He says you could do this on Shabbos. Lo b'shvil she'achamu. You don't want it to get hot. Ela b'shvil she'tapig tinatan. You want to remove, you want to remove some of the cold. You want to take away the chill.
We call it in Hebrew posher.
Posher? Okay, fine. So you're taking away the chill. Warmish, not yatsuledbo, not heating up. Rav Yehuda Omer, he says the same thing. Okay, here it is. Here's the lashon. Okay, so that'll be lukewarm. So that's a Tosfot.
Question is what?
Okay, that's a Tosfot. He's going into the Tosfot already, which is the Shulchan Aruch. Okay, you're there. You're very good. You're saying good. Right now, we're saying you can put it close, not for it to cook, but to get warmed up. The question is, if I leave it there and it could get cooked, can I still leave it there? We'll see.
The minute you see it's more than posher, you have to take it away.
You're saying like Rashi. He's saying like Tosfot. We'll get through it one step at a time. Very good. Rishon Gamliel says the same thing. When we smear her hand with oil, heat it opposite a fire. She may smear her young son with oil, and she need not be concerned about cooking. Okay. So I'm Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Echad shemen ve'echad mayim yad soleded bo asa. As soon as it gets to yad soleded bo, that's asa. In yad soleded bo mutar. Okay, so that's the definition. Once it hits yad soleded bo, that's cooked. Less than yad soleded bo, it's not cooked, and it's mutar. Okay, now that's the Gemara's question. But Gemara's explanation is also going to be complicated. But the hechi dami yad soleded bo. What does the word yad soleded bo actually mean? First of all, before we answer that, what's yad soleded bo? That if I put my hand on it, it's going to recoil. Okay,
right.
That's what yad soleded bo. Now, some people's hands, this guy, he cooks a lot, right? So his hand is more used to the heat. Mine is not so much. Very sensitive guy. So, so how do I do that? So, Amar Rachava, he says over here, Kol shekrisu shel tinok, that can get scalded by the water. Okay, so apparently the belly of the stomach of the baby, if that temperature can scald the stomach of the baby, which is thinner skin, right, than our skin, that's considered yad soleded bo.
I don't know if this is enough.
But it is. That's the same definition as yad soleded bo.
Every maim chamim, a little bit, it already can make it really
say even better. That depends. Sometimes there's hot water that if you just drop it, it can scald. But sometimes it's hot, not that one minute it hits it, but if you leave it there for a few minutes, you put them in the bath for a few minutes, that also will get it.
If I put my finger, nothing gonna happen. But if you put on the kersot shetino, it's gonna make it better.
Right. Right. So what do we have? What do we have so far? So what we do know, is that less than yad soleded bo is mutar, it's not cooked. More than yad soleded bo, that's already cooked. Now the question is what yad soleded bo is. Hand recoils. The Gemara says another definition. If the baby's belly can get scalded from that temperature of that liquid. Doesn't really help us in understanding what Yad Soleded bo is. So, in the Shalos Tzurba, Minchat Shlomo, this is Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Zecher Tzadik V'Bracha, and there is he based it on the Gemara in Chulin. The Gemara in Chulin talks about the neck of an animal. Is it cold? Is it hot? Right, because if the knife of the shochet touches it and it gets hot, then as it's cooked, what's the din of the knife and other things like that. But it basically says that there at the end that the animal's neck is not hot. Is not hot. So says Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, he says if you take the duck, he says take a look at the second paragraph on page 298. You're doing for some the sheer midat hachom shel baravez, right? Barvaz. He says it's midat hachom shel barvaz is karov la'arbaim v'chamesh ma'alot. It's like 45 degrees of Celsius. Okay, and the Gemara told us that the neck of an animal is considered cold. That means, according to what he's saying, is 45 degrees Celsius, which they're saying in the Tzurba is 113 degrees Fahrenheit. That is considered not Yad Soled. So 113 degrees Fahrenheit, liquid, that's not Yad Soled. Because the Gemara said that an animal's neck is cold, and says, I know that a duck is 45 degrees in his neck. And if that's the case, then it's then that's cold. So then it's less. So that is not Yad Soled.
Today boiling water is 212, no?
So there's Gemara in Chulin that they say, is the animal's neck cold or hot? It has to do with the knife, whatever. You always have to know is
what is being cold or hot?
That's the Gemara's conclusion is the neck of an animal is cold.
Cold.
It's cold. So they went and they found how much is the neck of a duck? 45 degrees Celsius. So he says, if that's the case and that's cold, then that's not Yad Soled. So it must be more than 45 degrees when he's alive. Yeah, before he's shechted.
So a person,
and then once it's shechted, it gets a degree higher. It says.
Person is what?
98.
I don't know what my neck is. I don't know.
You are a nurse.
Oh,
when
we say 98.6 Fahrenheit, but
when a person
average, yeah.
away,
Right, it goes up.
Goes up.
So too, he says by the duck too. He says the duck when it's thick, it goes up by 2. If you go through the whole thing, he writes about the different parts.
Usually, you check your in Celsius is about 38. No,
Okay. Let's go through the idea. All right, don't get stuck there. Right. Okay. Rabbi Chaim, don't get stuck with the animal's neck. Let's get stuck with this part. Shlomo Zalman Aruch says 45, right? Less than 45 is not Yad Soled, but above 45, that's Yad Soled. Well, that's what he wants to say. Comes the Or L'Tzion. So this is Rabbi Tzion Abba Shaul Zechat Tzadik L'Bracha. He says, and you look in the second paragraph, and he says, first he starts off in the first paragraph. He Gadol Echad Rotza L'Chir She Ad 45 Marlot Ba'da Nechshav Yad Soled as well. There's a big Gadol, means there's someone in Orbach, that wants to say it's 45 degrees. That's not Yad Soled as well yet. But he says in the second paragraph, he says it's not possible because he says La'achish HaMuchash. Look at the reality. Kirsol Shel Tinuk. It will get burned with 40 degrees Celsius. So it can't be 45. All right? When Tzurba Bishul says the baby's belly is going to be scalded at 40 degrees. Now, perhaps, and some want to say, perhaps the 40 degrees is if you leave the baby in there for a few moments, then the belly will get scalded. Whereas if someone's saying that the minute the water falls on the baby's belly, that's 45 degrees that was scalded. So maybe they're not really arguing, just the mitzias of what they're talking about. They're outside, I believe the outside the belly. Yeah. So he wants to say, and he wants to say the whole din over there by the animal, hot or not hot, that more has to do with it. Is it a Rishon considered a Klisheni? So even if it's hot, it's not really hot. He says it's a different din by the animal's neck. Nothing to do with it's hot or cold. Something totally else. Don't get confused with that. Okay? So he wants to say that 40 degrees is already Yad Soled. Okay, so far we have 2 opinions. We have Shlomo Zalman Orbach. That says 45.
That's considered cooking.
That's already considered cooking, right? Once it hits 45.
What is it in America?
113. Okay.
113 is 45.
Yes.
And,
according to Tzurba Abba Shaul, it's 40, which is 104 degrees Fahrenheit. That's already considered Yad Soled. Now, Rav Moshe Feinstein, he wants to say that it's 43 degrees, so 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, it's 43 degrees. And he says it's also possible that Yad Soled is not until you get to 160 degrees.
He's right.
Okay, so what we do, by the way, right? Because Chaim said before, because he said you drink hot soup, you drink hot tea, and it's way more. Okay, So you're saying good. You're saying good.
To boil water.
You're saying good.
212 degrees. The boiling water.
But people take hot showers. People take really hot showers. What's their temperature? Like 175. If I read that correctly today, I saw it somewhere. Check it. What's the hot temperature? Yeah. Oh, it's a baby skin is different. Baby skin is different, but
in the belly.
Okay.
Happened, and then it was this the baby, whatever. But they showed me how that happens. Look at this in a sink. She left them in a sink. She washed them with the baby. For a second, she turned. Yeah, so they're asking in the court now. What's the temperature? According to the burn.
That's my.
you know. Rabbi Ribiat's 39 melachot. Rabbi Ribiat's 39 melachot. Volume 2, part 2. Right there, the gray Sfarim, the gray books. Isaac, right under the Tzurba, the gray ones. Part 2, volume 2. Okay, Rabbi Ribiat.
So they want to know how the temperature fluctuates and what's the temperature.
Rabbi Ribiat brings a whole. Rabbi Ribiat brings a whole list over here. Oh, that's okay. He brings a whole list over here of what's considered a bishul and all the different temperatures that it can exist.
So you said no, that's the water heater gets to 145. Water heater normal one gets to 140.
140.
140. 145 is the dial is not good.
And how much does an urn get up to? Yeah, 100%. How much does an urn get up to?
What?
The urn, the samovar, the hot water urn.
Oh, this hot.
Much more.
Really?
Yeah.
160, 170.
So maybe I read that. Here. He says over here. Here, look. Here, Rivian has the temperatures. Lukewarm bath water for young children between 99 and 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 37 to 37.8. Average bath water most people take 101 Fahrenheit, 38.3. Hot bath water, comfortable for some adults, 104 to 105 degrees. So Rabbi Riviat brings this down over here. Hot tap water in average home, hot tap water, so he's right, so between 120 to 125. Cup of hot coffee, 125 degrees. A glass of hot tea, almost too hot to sip, like Shuki was saying, 165. A hot bowl of chicken soup can even be up to 180 degrees Fahrenheit.
Depends how much.
Okay, so Yad Seleded Bo. Okay, right. But okay, you're saying good. The hand. I don't know. It usually means that if it hits right back, that's Yad Seleded Bo. You can't keep your hand there. That's the words mean.
סולד זה לברוח, אז זה לא סולד להישאר. ההפך.
Okay. The Maisa, the halacha is like this. On Shabbat, who's checking the temperature of the thing? Like, how do you know it's 43, 44, 42? How do you know what it is? So what do you do? So what do you do? So the Ben Ish Chai actually gives us, and Chamovadia also says this is the way you actually do it. So you don't have to actually really know the temperature. It says, and this is a beautiful sefer that came out recently into Malachot of Shabbat. This is Rabbi Ovadia ben Yaakov, the Talmidim, Rabbi what's his name? Rabbi Kakian in Muncie. So one of his Talmidim put out this beautiful sefer, and he writes up, and he has all the notes in the bottom, discussed from Chazon Ovadia, Yabia Omer, as well as from the Ben Ish Chai. This is the source. Ben Ish Chai writes, in practice, it is not always possible to know the exact temperature of liquid that one is discussing, one is talking about. So the rule of thumb goes as follows. If an average person is able to eat or drink something the way it is, without having to blow on it, you don't have to do that, all right? Then it is not Yad Soledet Bo. Okay? If you can drink it easily, right? Then it's not Yad Soledet Bo. The minute when you're drinking it not so simply, that's Yad Soledet Bo. That's how you look at it on Shabbat. That's the way we practice. Right. So that's why we have to come to some sort of definition, halacha, what it is. So Exactly. But what do you do on Shabbat? Are you really taking out your mercury thermometer to check everything? No. So the Ben Ish Chai says this is what you do. He says you look to see if you can drink it normally, and if you can, then it's not Yad Soleded Bo, and if you can't, it is Yad Soleded Bo.
Each person.
Right, but we can't do that.
No, but the person himself said it comes for,
Right.
What are you gonna start taking thermometers?
Here. But that's how we check. That's how we actually check. Now the truth is, Moshe Feinstein said 160, and some say that Yad Soleded Bo is actually 176 degrees. Okay, so now
that's the boiling point.
Now we are going to hold of both shitas. Okay, l'chumra both ways. Okay, because we say for Sfaradim, you're allowed to return water when it's still hot, right? Back to the fire, back to the blech, or back to the warming tray. We're going to say that it has to be hot as Yad Soleded Bo l'chumra, 160, 176. But at the same point, we're going to hold the other way, that you can't go to 104, right? To make it hot if it's not hot anymore, right? If you wanted to warm it up, the stop point is 104. So l'chumra, we hold it both. We hold of it at this lower end, not to get it as hot as that. And in order to return it back, it has to be that hot in order to bring it back. Yeah, you have to know what you're dealing with, what case. L'chumra, which way you have to go with the shita. Okay, fine. Now we're going to come. So now we have a definition of what is bishul for liquids. It's making it Yad Soleded Bo. Our definition for Yad Soleded Bo, according to the Ben Ish Chai, is that you cannot drink it normally. That's Yad Soleded Bo. Okay, now this is the point that Rabbi David brought when we started this. We said from the Gemara that you're allowed to put the liquid near the fire in order for it to get warmish, lukewarm. So David said, what happened? Could I put it there? Could I put it in a place where it could get hot all the way to Yad Soleded Bo?
As long as you don't allow it.
Okay, so now let's take a look. Tosafot. Take a look at source number 8. Machloket, Tosfot, V'Rashi. Let's take a look. Tosfot writes, V'nira l'Rashba. Now this is not the Rashba that we're all familiar with. This is the Rashba. This is Tosfot Rashba. Was Rabbi Shlomo ben Ader, not Rabbi Shlomo ben Ader of Barcelona. Okay, this is Rabbi Shimshon ben Avraham of Sens. Okay, now he writes, this is where they let to put the jug opposite the fire. Okay, it's when you put it far away that it can never come to Bishul. It can never come to Yad Soleded Bo. It can't come to 104 degrees. Okay? Then you can put it there. But if you took it close enough that it could become Yad Soleded Bo, Asor, I feel have share, even to make it warm. Dilma, guys, you're putting it there for a few minutes to make it a little bit lukewarm. And then, honey, can you come here? And then, you forgot about it. You come out. It is already boiling. So his Tosafot says it cannot be too close that it could get cooked. You have to put it far away. Now the Ran, in explaining Rashi, he said no such thing. He says no, you could put it. Rashi from the woman not leave the water there until it gets hot, but only until it gets cold. It's lukewarm, and it seems v'ner midvarav shafilu karul v'medur mamash shemakar ray lavashel mutar. So Rashi seems to be saying, says the Ran, that you could put it next to, even if it could get cooked, as long as you make sure to take it off beforehand. So you have this machloket to spot and Rashi. Can you put it close enough for it to get cooked and make sure to take it away on time? Or no, you can't do that. You have to put it far away. So says the Shulchan Aruch, and source number 10, on page 301. Here in the Tzurba, mutar litain kiton shamayim oshar mashkim keneged ha'esh lahafik zinatan uvilvad shitanam rachok meha'esh be'inan she'enu yachol litchamam ba'oto makom ad she'eh hayat soledet. So you have to put it in a place that it cannot come to Yad Soledet. Then you can warm it up. אבל אסור לקרבו אל האש למקום שיכול לתחמם. yad tzoledet bo. Okay, but feel laniach bo sha'a ketana, right? Asur kivan she'achol kashel sham. Once you put it in a place that it could become yad tzoledet, that's not allowed. You have to put it in a place that it can never become yad tzoledet. If you want to warm up a cold liquid, okay. Now, interesting to note, the Yalkut Yosef deals with the case. Someone did put it there. Okay, the guy did put it there. He put it close enough for it to become cooked, but he took it away.
You know, the Yemenite,
He- Okay, so we'll deal with the Yemenites soon. Yeah, let's give them time. Give them time. Give them time. That's talking about already right. Ein Bishul, Ein Bishul Acher Bishul. We'll deal with that. We'll deal with that. And it's possible. It's possible the Rambam never really said that on mayim itself, but rather on soup and stuff like that. Like Tal wants to say that, right? But we'll deal with that in a moment. Let's take a look at this case for a second. Outside of the Tzurba for 1 minute. Let me just take a look over here on page 318. No, wait, that's page 304 over here. Should have told you that the Bishul in Shulchan Aruch is 318. Okay, Shin Yud Ches is the Hilchos of Bishul. Okay, he writes over here. If someone mistakenly placed a container of water or some other uncooked beverage on top of an electric warming tray or a fire on Shabbat in order to take the chill out. So here he has a cold liquid, uncooked, and he's putting it, not to cook it, but to take away the chill. But he puts it in the wrong place. He puts it too close. Okay? And he removed it before it got Yad Tzoledet before it turned 104, took it off. Rashi's case, which Rashi permits. He writes over here, it is permitted to drink that beverage on Shabbat even while it's warm. Although he performed a forbidden act to warm it, this does not fall under the category of benefiting from a forbidden act on Shabbat. Okay? He writes over here that so he writes that if a person did do this b'shogeg, he put it in the wrong spot and it got warm, but he took it off before it became yad tzoledet, he would be allowed to use it. Okay? Very good.
What's the mezid? You just wait till it cools down?
I'm not sure.
No,
I'm not sure. If it's b'mezid, you wouldn't be allowed to use it. You would have to wait after Shabbat and the time it takes, probably. Okay, fine. That is the first section of Bishul here, was dealing with liquids. So we got the Yad Tzoledet bo. We understand what Yad Tzoledet bo is. We understand that we can warm something up to Yad Tzoledet bo as long as it cannot get to Yad Tzoledet bo there.
Temperature.
What?
At 104 temperature.
And 104 is, according to Chacham Ben Tzvi Bishul, that is the Yad Tzoledet bo. For us to check, we taste it. We see if we can taste it or not. We can drink it normally or not. Okay, now we come to another important yesod of Bishul. How do you get to Bishul? Meaning, you told me 104. Fine, I understand that's Bishul. But what constitutes Bishul? What makes Bishul Bishul?
Something you could not eat it before, and now you put it on the heat, and now you put it in.
Okay, so what's the heat? What's the heat source?
So it depends. Each thing has a different kind of.
What happened if I use the biggest ball of fire in the world, which means the sun?
Yeah.
And if I cooked in the sun,
So there is such a thing.
is that Bishul?
It is Bishul.
So let's take a look.
Yeah,
Let's take a look.
With Arizona, 110 degrees.
No.
Why eggs outside?
What is the matter to get your temperature?
You could do, but
I agree.
maritime, you are not allowed to do it.
זה תולדת האש כן, אבל לא תולדת ההוא.
So we have to see, is it ish or is it the normal way of cooking?
The army used to cook eggs.
We'll take a look.
On Shabbat.
But let's take a look. Start. Mishnah, Masechet Shabbat, Gimel Gimel. He writes over here, Ein notin betzah betzad micham. You cannot put the egg next to an urn, right, in order for it to roast. V'lo yafki ana besudurin, and you do not break the egg over a cloth. And we're talking about here, you're not allowed to break an egg on the cloth that was heated by the sun. Okay, so you have a cloth that's heated by the sun. You can't break an egg in it on Shabbat. But it be Yosimatir. Roti says that is mutar. Okay, we don't know what's going on yet. We just know this is the case you have to know. Guy has a material that's heated by the sun.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't necessarily have to be cloth. I have a pan. Okay, I have a frying pan. I leave it in the sun on Shabbat. Gets hot from the sun.
Right.
Okay, so here's the machloket.
Very hot.
Tanakama says you cannot break an egg and make their egg on that hot pan that got heated from the sun. And Rabbi Yossi says you could. Okay, that's the machloket. Now, why is that? Because Rashi says you can't do it. You cannot do that. That's the first opinion. That's kind of okay. Now, Sechel Shabbat continuation. Lametet Amud Aleph over here says v'haditnan. This is that we said that a person may place cooked food into a pit to protect it from heat, and one may place good water into the bad so that it will cool, and cold water in the sun to heat it. The Gemara says, let us say the Mishnah is not in the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, and not the opinion of the rabbis. Okay, that put this on the side. Next one, this is the most important. Amar Rav Nachman. Bechama, if you're cooking with the sun, the kuli ama lo pligi deshari. Everyone holds you're allowed to cook in the sun on Shabbat. Nobody argues. Bitodat haor, but with the holder of the sun, a derivative of the sun, the frying pan, okay? The first case that everyone says is mutar, if I have here a barrel of water, and I keep the water in the sun shining on the water, that water gets hot, I can use that water. Drink it, I can wash my hands, I can wash my dishes, I can use that water. That's what he says, if it's direct from the sun. But now, if I want to take my frying pan that got heated from the sun, the frying pan got heated by the sun, and now I want to use it. That's the machloket.
If you take the egg and you just put it there,
okay, but the tolda of the or, no one, everyone argues it's not, no, it's not. Keep pligi, but when it comes to the tolda of the sun, okay, so the sun heated something up. Mar savar gazinan todat chama atu todat haor. Mar savar lo gazina. That's the machloket to be Yossi and Tanakama. Is when you had this cloth or this frying pan that got heated, do you compare the tolda of the chama to the tolda of the fire, or do you say the chama, tolda of the chama is like the chama? Okay, so just get it clear right now. According to what we learned in the Mishnah and the Gemara, cooking with the sun is allowed on Shabbat.
No, but it's only without a kli.
With direct through the sun.
Exactly.
Direct through the sun.
You take the egg, you put it over somewhere, and it's got cooked. You could eat this egg.
Correct.
But if you put it in the machvat,
yeah,
asur.
Right.
A machloket.
Where the heat is going from. Okay.
Cold.
Right. So if I
put it on a pan or you put it on
the machvat is cold.
the pan is cold.
The machvat gonna get hot from
you were
the
in
sun.
the tent. You were in the tent.
Yeah.
Right? In the tent, you had the teflon
You put it in the
machvat.
pot,
You break an egg inside, and then you take it outside to the sun.
all right.
Zetuladat shemesh.
Before you make up stories, let's take a look over here. I'm outside of the Tzurba for a moment. Here in the Yalkut Yosef English edition, he explains it very simple. He says it's permissible to cook on Shabbat using the direct heat of the sun. Direct heat of the sun, you're allowed to cook with on Shabbat. For example, one may place a container of water or an egg in the sunlight so that it will heat up and become cooked. Okay, if the sun is directly in the egg is directly in the sun, the water is directly in the sun, you can get cooked. Okay, our sages instituted a rule by forbidding us to cook on Shabbat with the heat of an object that has been heated by the sun. But if the object got heated by the sun, that's what you can and can't use. For example, if someone left water in the sunlight until it becomes yatsa ledenbo, it's forbidden to put a raw egg in that water so that the egg will cook on it.
That's the secondary.
Yes,
So
you're
we're talking about-
using the heat of the sun that
the-
went somewhere else.
So the example that Yosef brought was good.
Right.
That's considered to be
If you say
direct to the sun.
that's the question by Yosef, I would say is what's cooking that egg?
The sun.
Is the sun directly cooking the egg, or is the sun hitting the metal and the metal now cooking the egg?
The sun.
Okay, if you say it's the sun,
there was the middle
what conducts heat? But what conducts heat better? The metal probably conducts the heat.
But the heat conducted by the metal. If there was no sun, there was no heat.
We're not none of us are arguing. We're really arguing how does it get cooked? Right? If it gets cooked from the sun, everyone will say it's mutar. If it gets cooked from the keli, then everyone will say it's. The question now is what's the mitzias? I don't know. I never checked it out, so I don't know.
It's gonna be so hard you cannot touch it. But if the sun is very, very strong, then if you put the egg inside, for sure the metal is
If
cooking.
I put the egg by itself outside, is that gonna get cooked?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
So what difference does it make if the pan is there or not
That's
there?
why the machloket is
That-
telling you over here.
No, so
And
that
after-
is the case that you would- if the
It's
pan was
direct.
there prior, but if you're putting it after you put the egg
After that
That if the surface
is a
The
conducting
elemental
heat,
thing,
right? It'll make it heat faster. It'll make it cook faster if it conducts heat well. So now it's the keli that's
So
cooking.
you have that case and you have Yosef's case.
Right.
Fine. In your case and their cases, they were
Right.
saying, yes, it's not allowed, but in Yosef's case, it's allowed.
If he's saying
Because
that
it's not
if
conducting
he's
more than the
saying
sun.
if he's saying that it doesn't, if you're telling me that the mitzias is the
You're just
actuality
supposed to let it fall
is
out.
this that it's not cooking it, the metal is not cooking it, but rather it's the sun directly, then everyone's gonna say it's mutar.
The metal is holding it in place.
Okay, you're saying it's just a holder, then it's just a holder. Depends on it. All right, okay.
You said before, and the Yaqut Yosef said a container of water, a glass of water, right?
Right.
If it warms it up. So wait a second. So in that case, maybe the glass is not allowed either because it's the glass there that's
We'll
holding
get
it.
into the Dut
So you
Shemesh
say
really
the
short.
container is there. We're not looking at the container,
Yeah,
we're looking at the
We'll get
item
into the
inside.
Dut Shemesh in a minute. Okay, now. All right, so all right, now Rashi says a key word over here. Rashi says, why is cooking in the sun not an Isser Malacha of Bishul? So he writes, the Ein Derech Bishul B'tach. Okay, what does Rashi actually mean by this? But Rashi says it's not the way of cooking. It's not the way of cooking. What does that mean, not the way of cooking? We'll get into that. But that's what Rashi says for now. It's not the way you cook. You cook with heat, with fire, not with sun. No one goes outside and says, okay, I'm making a dinner today. I'm going to go to the sun. Yeah, it's not the way it's done.
Solar.
All
right.
You could do it.
Solar.
Okay. Now, there is a Gemara in Psachim, and the Gemara talks about the Pesach. Oh, Pesach's coming up. Here, you see? So we're talking about making the carbon Pesach. We know the carbon Pesach has to be tzili, has to be roasted. Okay, you can't cook it. The question now is, the guy didn't cook it with water that he put on his stove, but he took it to the Chamei Tiveria. Okay? Took it to... So, 1 second. Did he cook it? Right? Because an Isser, he's not supposed to be cooking it.
That's Bishul.
Is it Bishul? But he didn't use fire. It's Chamei Tiveria. So let's take a look. Amar Chizda, Hamivashu b'Chamei Tiveria b'Shabbat Potter. Someone cooked in the Chamei Tiveria on Shabbat Potter of a loss, right? You can't do it, but he's Potter. Pesach shebishlo b'Chamei Tiveria Sayer. So the Gemara says, "My shna b'Shabbos, delo, the told Eish Minan Vileka, and Pesach Nami." Is it not also it's not a fire? So why on Shabbat you tell me Chamei Tiveria I'm Potter, and if I cook my Pesach in the Chamei Tiveria you tell me that I'm Chayev? Is it Bishul or is it not Bishul? Right? If it's Bishul, it should be Bishul on both sides. So Amarava, my Chayev the Ketani, not that he's Chayev, that's Bishul, the Ka'avar Mishum Tzli Eish. He didn't do Tzli. Right? It's not Bishul. Right? It's not Bishul because it's not fire. It's Chamei Tiveria.
Why is calling it fire?
It's chayiv that he didn't do the. That's
It's another korban.
He's chayiv that he didn't do tzli. The ka'avar mishum tzli. Okay. But so what comes out? What comes out? Okay.
So why is calling it fire?
But he's saying it's not. He's saying it's not bishul, but it's not tzli. So if you're cooking without fire, then you don't have bishul. That's the point of this Gemara, is that only cooking. Read the box. The Gemara indicates that not only is cooking without fire an unusual method of cooking, food cooked in this manner is not even considered cooked. It's not considered a bishul. Not considered tzli, but it's not considered bishul. Okay, so the eglei tal. Okay, so we're gonna get into now machloket of eglei tal and Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. How do we look at what fire is? When Rashi said that the ain't derech bishul v'kach. It's not the way of cooking. What is meant by this? So the Eglei Tal, we already spoke about this somewhat last week when we spoke about shinui. That's something he's done with the shinui on Shabbat. Rav has to do something that he can't do on Shabbat for whatever reason, sick, whatever it is, because of a shinui. What does shinui mean? Right? So there was two understandings of what shinui is. Shinui could be, I'm doing it in a different way, but the result is the same. Meaning, I'm pressing the button in the elevator with my elbow. It's still going to the same place. It's the same result. Okay? Or does shinui mean I'm doing it different and the result is different? Okay? That's what we spoke about last week. So the Eglei Tal says the same thing over here. He says, you know why Eish is not derech bishul? He says because it's not the same way of doing it. That chama is not the derech bishul. So first of all, it's not the same way of doing it, and the result is different. It says the quality of the cooked food in the sun is not like you're cooking in your 5-star Michelin restaurant. It's a different food. Okay, it's different quality. So he says the result, right? Right. So last line in the bold on page 304. In the product of what you're making, because the product, what you finished with, is different result. Okay, so when Rashi said this is not derech bishul, it means that both the way of cooking it and the result of the cooking is different with the sun, and therefore it's mutter l'chachila.
Okay. Look, I have something to say. Look,
yeah,
bishul with the chama, with the sun, there are all kind of metals. Like if you put them outside, the heat goes through very, very fast,
right,
very fast, and makes like mevashel very fast, like a metal itself, iron or other things like that. They go. But if you take, like you say, the water you say it's not. I think if we put the water in a plastic and then it gets warm a little bit, this is 100% mutar. But if you put the water in a metal and the metal gets very hot, you're
going back to his case,
and the metal gets very hot, then you are not allowed to drink it because it's a bishul.
You're differentiating between the keli.
Yeah,
right.
You're differentiating between the keli.
Absolutely.
Okay, after. But you understand what the Eglei Tal is saying over here. That they cook it with chama. The method of cooking and the result of the cooking is different.
But you see,
Now,
if you cook an egg, if you crack an egg in a metal, in outside, when it let's say in Phoenix, so the egg is going to come the same thing like you put it on a fire. It's going to mevashel, sure, 110, 115.
No difference.
So your question is also in the summer. Here, your question. I'm not going to answer it now. We'll go into it eventually. But the question is for you. I go on some of the apartment buildings on the top. They have par, right? In the summer it gets really hot.
Right.
So on Shabbat, can I take my egg and make it scrambled egg on the tar?
On the top. Only if you can eat it afterwards.
Eat it or not? It's bishul, right? Is it bishul? Doesn't matter if it's metal or not. Okay, we'll get into it. Anyway, let's take a look. So that was the Eglei Tal. The Eglei Tal was the Avnei Nezer, Sachachover. And he said the act and the result is different. Of Shlomo Zalman Auerbach and his Shulchan Shlomo, he says nothing to do with the result. I don't care if the result's the same. She'ikar hatam hu mishum the kala hu deleka bishul ki im be'esh v'tolato b'lo b'davar acher. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says what makes it not bishul is that there's no fire. He doesn't care about what the result comes out at the end. It's the same, not the same, doesn't make a difference. It has to do with if it's fire or not fire.
Boom.
If it's fire, it's bishul. If it's not fire, it's not bishul.
So now you have electric and it's not fire.
So very good. What about electric? Before there was electric stovetops.
Fire.
You have electric, by the way. Rabbi Chaim Oizer said it was completely fire. Right? He actually did his work and stuff like that. But you should know, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, we're going to see it. He held that electricity cooking is not considered fire. And when the Chazon Ish told him it is, he says, I came out, I was arguing with him, and I still didn't understand how it's fire. Okay, so the Machlokes, if electricity is fire, we hold the Ma'aseh that electricity is fire. But
Maybe motion.
The induction, we have
right.
Somebody asked, isn't raw egg muktzeh?
Say again.
Somebody asked in the chat, isn't raw egg muktzeh?
Is raw egg muksa?
They
Not
didn't have
necessarily
it in
raw. It's
mind.
not necessarily muksa because
What
a
can you
lot
do
of
on
people,
Shabbat?
a lot of people drink raw
Swallow it.
eggs.
And the
Right,
man,
right.
Drink
Okay.
it. Chazanim, you know, we take the egg, a little bit of salt, and drink it, and then you
For the
come to
boys.
the shul and you can sing nice.
Clear.
I have to do it for a whole week before my bar mitzvah, by the way. Hey, see, it worked out in the end. It was good. It was good. Okay, fine.
but
Okay.
you know, today they come with a new thing, solar thing, and this makes electricity.
Right.
And from the sun.
Right.
From the sun.
Right.
So what are you going to do with
But electricity is fire.
אבל ברגע שעבר חזרה לאלקטריסיטי, זה כבר
Right.
אש.
Right. Once it converts from sunlight, from sun energy to electricity, it's now ish. It's now no longer solar.
No, but
That's
the
we're gonna see.
sun itself
Okay,
is
let's do one step at a time. You're jumping.
cooking.
Okay. Let's cook the shear well. Let's go. Now he gets into the sugi over here about cooking in a microwave oven, page 305. Now, putting everything else aside, the electric to start the microwave and everything else, how does a microwave cook? Microwave is not using fire.
Radiation,
Using radiation, but it's not fire. It's not ash. There's really no ash in there.
but
So-
it works with the electricity.
Okay, so barring the electricity issue of starting the thing, it's on a timer. It goes on whatever whatever way you can get away with it. Forget that. Question now is the microwave itself, the cooking of the microwave. Is it fire? Or is it not fire? If it's not fire, and you go to Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, who said only fire is Bishul, so then maybe cooking in a microwave is not Bishul. You have other problems. How do you start the microwave? Who's pressing what? Right? Those are issues. But Ma'aseh, the cooking of a microwave.
The guy did it. Are
Okay,
you allowed to eat it?
let's see. All right.
The question
So
is,
Rav Moshe Feinstein takes another whole look at this Rashi. Rashi, who said the ain't derech bishul b'kach, right? So you had the Eglei Tal says that means the cooking is different, the result is different. Shlomo Zalman said it means that it's not ish. Okay, Rav Moshe Feinstein comes with another twist on this, and he says, "How do you cook? What is the normal cooking now? Okay, what is the normal cooking now?" And he writes at the end of his long shtickle over here, right? He says that the cooking in the sun is never considered normal. No one ever does that. It's not something that's set. But he reads, but in Kain microwave, okay, microwave, right? He says, so it's Tov Lavashalbo, Kimoba Ish. It's perfectly fine to cook in it. And he says, and those who have such an oven use it more than cooking with fire. And then he continues, and the reason that those ovens have not yet become widespread, remember, he's writing the Tzurba in 1971. Microwave just came on the market. Okay, they weren't yet in the residential use. So he says the reason people don't have them yet is because they're not available. But as soon as they become available, it's going to be everywhere, and people are going to use it more. So says Rav Moshe, if that's the case, then it's derech bishul, right? What means derech bishul? Is the way people cook. He says microwaves, people can cook that way, and people might prefer to cook that way. So then it's derech bishul, and therefore it's going to be the malacha of bishul. Right, it's a reheater. Right, it's usually Moses reheating. But people do nuke potatoes in there, right? The potatoes are apparently
Potatoes, cakes,
the stuff that you can do in a microwave. So Rav Moshe takes this Rashi, Ein Derech Bishul, that means way of cooking, not necessarily fire, way of cooking. And he says microwaves, he's saying in Nevuah will become a way of cooking, and therefore it's gonna be awesome. Alts Bishul.
then how did Tomen come over here for the whole hour discussion?
What?
Tomen. The Tzurba Shabbat.
Insulating.
Yeah.
Right, that's
How this come to our conversation?
it's related. It's the Rabbanan, and it's going to be on a later shir. Okay, today we're just dealing with what is Bishul, the Raita, what is not Bishul.
We are not allowed to do it. So if we're not allowed to do the Tomen, we're not allowed to do it.
Let's not get into Tumen. Right now, I know nothing about Tumen. I don't even know what that means. I know Bishul, V'chamo, not V'cham. This is where I'm holding. Okay, so he writes, one certainly should derive from cooking with fire, which was in the Mishkan, the status of a tolda, which is equivalent to the av, and therefore he ends up in saying that the microwave is in us. Now, Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, he says, I once visited the Chazon Ish. And I said to him, the one who boils water on Shabbat using an electric fork, whose two ends are at a distance, and the circuit is created only through the water, then in my view, it's derabanan. It's not fire, right? And he says that the Chazon Ish told me it is fire, and it's exactly Bishul, right? The Chazon Ish said, electricity is fire. And the Shlomo Zalman says, I left and I still didn't get it. It was still astonishing to me. I don't understand how electricity is fire. Right? So he keeps going with this thing that Bishul is fire, not Bishul. And electricity is not Bishul according to him. Now, in the Yalkut Yosef in source 20, so based on this, machlokit over here, if microwave is derech bishul, is it not derech bishul? Right? According to Shlomo Zalman, it's not derech bishul. Derech bishul is only with fire. So he writes, "Asur levashel b'Shabbos, the machsher how do you say this in Hebrew? Mikrogel,
yeah,
mikrogel, or betorbogal. Right? Those are types of microwaves. Okay, you're not allowed to do that, even if they're activated through a Shabbat clock. One may not be lenient in this regard, even for a chola she'ein bo sakana. But v'im yesh tzarich levashel b'Shabbos, l'tzarich chola. But if you have to cook for a chola on Shabbat, you have to cook. You have to do it. Cooking anyway, right? Chola she'esh bo sakana. Api harat roifa. The doctor said you have to cook for him. He needs fresh food. Okay. Yesh lahadif levashel b'microwave. Then maybe you should use the microwave. Why? Because there are some shitas, that it's not bishul. So we hold you can't use the microwave because we're saying it is bishul, derech bishul like a Moshe. But if you need to cook on Shabbat, use the microwave if possible, if it's not going to ruin anything for the toilet. But use the microwave because you have less problems because maybe it's not derech bishul considered on Shabbat. I put a note here in mine. There's another halacha. Oh, okay. So now there's a second side to this. Now we usually say ein bishul acher bishul, right? Once you cook, you can't cook again. What happened before Shabbat? I cooked it in the microwave, not on the fire. Right? What's the din of this food? Is it cooked or not? Yeah, he's right. We're consider it not cooked, right? Because the Meister was saying if you need to cook on Shabbos, cook in the microwave because maybe it's not cooking. So we say if you cook before Shabbos in the microwave, it's not considered cooked. You can't reheat it because it's not cooked.
But according to the other one, he says microwave is
cooking. Yeah, according to Meister, yes, it is cooking, but we hold we're not sure. So we say don't do it, but maybe it is not cooking. So therefore, if it's not cooked, you can't reheat it on Shabbat. Okay, right here it says it's possible that cooking food in microwave is not considered an act in the Mevashel according to the Torah. If that is so, then the rule of ein bishul acher bishul would not apply to the food that had been cooked in a microwave oven. If food was cooked in a microwave oven until it was well done, it may not be reheated on an electric warming tray on Shabbat, since it may not be that is considered cooking according to halakha.
You took 5 minutes.
It's like cooking in the chama. Okay, I cook my food in the sun before Shabbat. I cannot put that food on the heating tray on Shabbat because it's not considered cooked. Saying derech bishul, not cooked. In reality, it's cooked. I can eat it. It's edible. But bishul means it's cooked through fire. And ein bishul acher bishul means after fire. Okay, so you have this.
So you're looking at the microwave like the sun.
That's what we're saying. According to Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, it's like the sun. It's not cooking. And if it's not cooking, you can't reheat it.
So then there is no bishul. There is a person is over alive after he's been mevashel, even if he went to a microwave.
Right, because it's not considered cooked. You're heating up and non-cooked food. You're cooking. Right, that's what he's saying over here. So you have to always, every time you're looking at something, you have to look at it from both sides. This is the cool, is the chumrah. How do you use this on both sides? Okay, now that we dealt with the microwave, we're going to get into the dut shemesh. Okay, the solar water heating systems. Okay, so in Eretz Yisrael,
no, solar is the oil. Solar.
No, solar.
In Eretz Yisrael, most of the building, most of the houses, they have on the top tell me if I'm wrong, they have like this reservoir of water that heats up with the sun. Okay, and then I remember when I was there just saw once. I had supposed to be there for 10 days. Okay, so I stayed by my wife's sister, my sister-in-law, and when I came to the shower over there, they had like a button on there. I was like, "What's this button?" So he was telling me that if you run out of the solar water, then they have the option to go to the electric water. So you have the switch. Okay, so you have their water that's getting heated from the sun. The question now is, so what's the thing? Sun cooking water is not considered cooked. You're allowed to use it on Shabbat, not Bishul, right? So you're allowed to use it on Shabbat.
According to what they were saying, they transferred it to electricity, and that turned.
Okay, so those new Dud Shemeshes, those are newer, okay, which takes the electric through a solar panel, converts it into a heat, into a tube there that has a heat, and then the water passes through that tube and gets hot. That would be also on Shabbos, because that's a tolda of Chama. We're talking about where it gets heated directly from the sun.
So just to understand, there's a reservoir.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm Israeli, but I didn't, and I never knew the statistic. Sun,
There's 2 panels on the side.
right?
Now, natural of the water, when they get hot, they climb up. Okay? So it's natural movement between the panels and the tank.
Okay.
It's not when you pull.
So it's not solar. That's solar.
No, that
But the water is in the sun.
The tank is just the tank.
Right. What I'm saying is that the water is standing in this in
The
the
panel
system,
standing in the sun.
and it's not like it's transferring into electricity. It's just the water getting
No,
heated
it's
up.
just the water.
Oh,
Now,
so
the
the sun
water
is
is
getting
gathered.
Okay, fine. It's not solar. It's not solar.
It's
That's solar.
It's heated by the water is heated by the sun.
By the sun. No sun,
Direct.
no electricity.
Right.
Okay.
If you start using panels that converts it to electricity and puts it into a tube, and then the water gets heated up through that, then that's a told of chama, and that's going to be a problem. You can't do that. We're dealing with a reservoir that gets heated by the sun. Okay, so in such a case, so he wants to say in the Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata, Dina Bishul B'Shemesh Yesh La'ayin the Ulai B'Zman Hazeh Shemafikim Chum Mikoach Hashemesh. So you're taking it from the Koach Hashemesh, right? Yesh Makom LeIsur HaBishul, right? Because it's a told of Chama now. If you're taking a solar power and converting that and using that, that might be a problem. Because you're using not the sun's heat, but rather the energy that's created from that. Okay.
But what he's saying is not because of that necessarily, because of this is the way, the usual way. If that's the usual way, then that becomes Bishul.
No. Where are you seeing that?
If you continue, Rashi, the Shari, the end there Bishul Bekach. Usually,
yeah, but
it would be okay. But mashma the chol shedech Bishul Bekach yesh makom le'asur. If this is the way now it's cooking always, then it becomes asur. And that's what I understood. שו"ת איגוד משה, אור חיים. מסכים, אז מה שמירה שבת כהלכתם מנסה להסביר?
He is saying that if you're using solar power,
אסור להשתמש.
so he wants to say, so you're saying like Rav Moshe, right? He's saying that as long as something is a derech to done, then it is considered bishul. Okay, so even let's say not dealing with solar power. Let's say that the way of cooking water is with the sun, right? So that's the way now. According to Rav Moshe, that's the derech bishul. That would become us.
כולם עושים את זה. כל אחד יש לו דוד שמש על הגג.
But l'halacha, we don't say that. L'halacha, we don't say like that. Okay?
That's what he said.
So therefore, if it's heated by a sun, even though it's derech, it's still not considered derech bishul because we say that it has to be eish. Okay, fine. Now, he writes over here, Minchat Yitzchak, if in reality in the solar water heating system, the cold water enters, okay, now you have another problem. Now you have another problem. I'm opening up the source 22. I'm opening up the solar water, right? And what happens? Cold water now comes in.
You open the hot water and you use the hot water, then right away cold water.
Well, now the cold water hits the hot water. What's the hot water?
The hot water is warm.
What was its definition in halakha being right now? The hot water.
So
that's the chama.
Yeah.
Can you use soda chama?
No.
No.
But they have a patent. They have now a thing that they.
You can close it off.
No. They did a tank. I don't know exactly. I didn't study it yet, but I know the small tank. They approve it, but that's approved. That
Okay.
you can use it.
It probably closes off the cold water, not letting the cold water come in.
It's something that they're adding in the tank to the side, and maybe it does the circulating all the time. It doesn't let cold water. Something over that I did not understand.
If you don't let cold water in, you have no problem because you're just using the cooked water from the sun.
Basically, you can let the water down. Usually here in New York, the water is
Right.
you have
Downtown.
to water.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank, he wants to say that even if you do open it and cold water comes in and it's a told of the chama, but you know what? It's just a grumma. It's indirect. And I don't really want it. Okay? It's not something that I'm miscaving to. It's not something that I want. He says, right? And it's trader abanon. Vavada yesh lahater ve'enu miskaven psekresha. So psekresha, it's gonna happen, but I don't want it. It's a grama. It's a derabanan. Because really, there's no problem with told chama. If you can cook with chama, you can cook with a told chama. But Atu told us to or we don't do told chama, so it's derabanan, trade derabanan, psekresha, lemiskaven, grama. You're allowed to, right? Is it syrup?
What?
Is it syrup?
What you don't want?
The
You don't want the cold water to go into the hot water. You want the hot water. You don't care about the cold water going in. Look, it's not to me. I don't care for it. Right? Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata. He writes the same thing. I don't care about it. It's not something that I care about. Going in, not going in.
Even if the cold water goes in, it takes you out.
But still, it's cooking with the Tolas Lechama. Now, okay, before we go on, where did I see this? Okay, in the Rabbi Nakson Sefer Hayol Amim, he brings kama reasons of why we're not worried about the cold water entering. He brings kama reasons over here. Just take a look at a few of them quickly. We already mentioned a few of them. First of all, it's a grama, okay, on a derabana. Okay, then it's enu miskave. We're not wanting it. Not our kavana. Then he says it's only told at chama. Then he writes, it's not necessarily going to come to a boil, like Rabbi Yosef was saying. You're going to come in. You're not getting right away to boiling up. You're not going to let this bowl. It's it takes whatever. It's not right.
The temperature of the water that's in the juice.
Right. Is it Yatzel bowl? We're assuming it is. We're assuming. Yeah. So the question. So the question.
Everybody took a shower.
So he writes over here. It should be also known that one should not use as much water at once that the entire intake will be emptied out and have to be filled and warmed up again. Okay. So
the chances are very low because usually Erev Shabbat, the more usage it is, and especially I know that because I have it in my house, suddenly it drops. The temperature drops.
Yeah.
So I know for sure if Shabbat is 5:30, Shabbat I'm taking a shower at 5, I'm done. I don't have hot water.
That's it.
I know that. So I have the gas.
They had the electric one.
No, I have the gas.
The gas.
The natural gas kicks in right away. Sense that there is no water and it starts to work. So I would say, like whatever it says here, that you can use Erev Shabbat because the temperature drops from cooking.
Right.
Which is for sure, you know what? Even it's for sure. I'll tell you why. Because the sun takes a long time for it
to get hot.
Because they don't have a circulator pump that runs the water quick. So the water heats up, going to the top of the tank, and then the bottom cools, and it's natural thing. That's not exactly.
So it takes a long time. So because of this, especially after switching from sun heated water to gas or electric heated water, the Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata brings down from Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach that he wasn't so happy with people using this. Because we're concerned, right? Because it might kick in, right? And you might come to be using the electric heated water. You think you're using the solar, and it's something that we do interchangeable all the time. So he's worried for it. And he's hesitant to say that it's okay to use. He holds back from it. Rabbi Eliezer Melamed, he wants to bring other reasons of why you can use it. If you say you can't use it during the morning, maybe you can use it only at night, because at night there is no shemesh cooking it up, right? And you don't want it to go in at all. You don't want the cold water to go in. It's going to cool everything down. There's nothing heating it up at that moment. So maybe that's still okay. And he says maybe you can use it even during the day. So there's many reasons to allow it. Just we'll take a look in a moment, just from the Yalkut Joseph, and he goes through this also pretty nicely. He says those who have solar water heating systems in their houses are permitted to turn on the hot water faucet on Shabbat and use the hot water for washing dishes, to wash one's hands, face, and feet. It's permissible to use water that was heated on Shabbat itself, and certainly to use on Friday evening, the water that was heated on Friday. Now, one exception, even if in your own house, you still can't bathe in warm water, your whole body on Shabbat. You can take a cold shower, but you cannot bathe in hot warm water, even if it's cooked by the sun. That's a separate exception. Now, he says this leniency needs explanation, because when the hot water faucet is turned on, hot water runs from the reservoir where it's stored, and the water is immediately replaced by cold water that runs into the reservoir. That cold water mixes with the existing hot water, and as a result, all the water in the barrel is now yatzeledet bo. Therefore, this is an act of cooking the cold water using the heat of the water that heated by the sun, the tolt of chama, and it should be us. However, he brings all these same reasons. When someone turns on the faucet, he does not do so in order to cook water in the barrel. He doesn't want cold water to go in and cook it. His intention is only to use the water coming out of the faucet. But turning on the hot water, he would definitely cause the cold water to enter the barrel and become cooked. And it's a case of sik reisha that's usually forbidden even when it's not mitkaven, but that's only true when it's a malacha deoraita. This act of cooking with the tolda of chama, it's a derabanan. And we hold sik reisha, shalom iskavin, but the rabbanan is okay. And therefore you would allow to use it. They're not using it? Why are they not using it?
In the summertime, you have a crazy sun over there, which is boiling.
Now, you're saying people have it and they're not using it. No one's using it. I'm reading what it says here. It says
not allowed. I don't know what about but they have this patent. I really want to know what it is. I want to know.
Now you have to be very careful that it has to be make sure it's only cooked by the sun. If it's heated by the electric or gas, then that's forbidden.
No, the electric has to be switched or timer. But it's not. It doesn't happen. It's only winter time, by the way, when it's cold, people put it on, and then you can wait. Shabbat is done, and you don't have water.
Yeah, so he writes over here, and the Rabbi Nachson writes that one may even turn on the cold water in order to cool off the hot water that is coming out, even if the cold water flow into the holding tank. However, he writes, one who is strict and is praiseworthy. Even those who are lenient should preferably close the valve in order to stop more cold water entering the tank of water. So the Maisa halacha, we have reasons to say it's okay, but everyone seems to say don't do it, because the cold water is going in, even though it's a davar she'eino miskaven, and everyone and
the sun, the water from the sun. And if I use it the first time and I open it, it's hot. Other than the one the hot water that we have.
My question is okay. We close the water, cold water from entering the boiler. Okay.
Hot water coming down.
When you open in, gonna shower, you mix with
already
cold
have time.
Water
Okay.
together. You don't take a
Very
shower
good.
with hot water. You mix with cold
So
the water that's trying to come to you, you need something to push it up. So it's one. You want it to drop, or you gotta open here.
How magic. Hot water coming down on my shower.
Yes.
But I don't need the hot water to shower. I need to mix it with the cold water together. Make it warm.
Okay.
So once I'm mixing this cold water with hot water, it's already I'm Bishul I'm doing. So what's the difference? The water entering the tank or the water?
About washing dishes and stuff like that.
No, גם washing dishes. You mixing anyway.
Yeah.
You mixing it here or you mixing it there? What's the difference?
No, the difference
but he
is
writes over here as well. Va'machmar toval of bracha tov, v'sov tov, v'tzinor, v'chubar l'dut shehu kli rishon. So there's an issue. We have minyan. Okay, I will tell you, we got up to here. We didn't finish the whole shiur, but next week, B'ezrat Hashem, we'll be starting with the new sefer. We'll start from here and we'll continue into the new sefer as we continue Bishul part 2. We have minyan?
Yeah.
Rabbi Hanina ben Kasher Omer, Tzedek HaKadosh Baruch Hu Zakoi Yisrael, Lefika Chebal Hem Torah Mitzvot Shneimah, Adonai Chafetz Leman Tzidko Yagdil Torah V'Yadir.
כן.